Hi, it's Nancy welcoming you to Garden Scroll. This little rose has several different shades and colors at different times depending on the lighting it's getting. I don't know if you're able to see the beauty and the color today or not, but it is just so pretty. I hope I'm getting it on here at least partly as beautiful as this really is. It's July the 27th, and what's happening in the garden? Surprise lilies are blooming. The little cosmos blooms love the heat. They just don't seem to mind it a bit. Give them enough water and they're feeling great. But several of the plants have given up, and many of the plants are wilting down before I get to them in the evening, unless I give them a little drink to help them make it to the evening. This little hosta was so beautiful in the spring, and actually I think it's still going to make it, but it's just going to struggle on. But hopefully if it'll make it, it'll be beautiful again next spring. And I may divide this and put some of it in a pot where I can move it to a shade. I gave up on the plants the seeds that I had planted in this little pot. But I decided to try again, and this time I got some of them to come up. So we will see what I will have. I'm sure I will have to transplant some of these that have two little ones in it over into the ones that have none in it. But hopefully this will still have a chance to look pretty before the season is finished. You know, when it does begin to get cooler, things will start to renew themselves and become beautiful again. But right now they're kind of like the gardener. They're just hoping to make it to that time. My castor bean has grown up. Isn't it looking great? My pretty fluffy fennel has actually put on little flower seed heads. The zinnias are still loving the heat. Of course, it is nipping some of their little leaves. Like this peony little bush right here is totally nipped by the heat. Another little plant is telling me that it may not be able to wait for a drink till this evening. The daylilies have all but totally gone. All of them are just the old dried stalks, or not all, but most. These little ones are still putting on a little bit of bloom for me. But no matter how much we look on the bright side in the summer's garden, it's a hard time for the garden and for the gardener. But of course, we do look for that beauty, and it can still be found. if you can wipe the sweat out of your eyes enough to see it, it's actually there. However, my once beautiful blue lobelia is gone. It's totally gone, and the calabrachoas are looking so terribly scraggly. This is still have some pretty overhang here, but you can tell its root is giving it up. I don't know if it'll make it to cooler weather. We still have August to go through. Per usual, my calabrachoas are going. You can tell this one just looks just pitiful, and I may go ahead and trim it back, but most usually for me, I know they can renew themselves after you trim them back, and I probably will try, but for me usually it's just a try is all it is. Usually once they get to this point, they don't come out of it. Even my little silver brocade wormwood or artemisia is looking pretty pitiful, and I love this little plant. Usually, remember that I put some in this little pot. It was all the way around one side, and I was planning on putting some around the other, but it's obvious to me that it's not going to make it here in this little pot. So I went with succulents. I poked some succulents in there, and even in the heat they seem to be doing fine. So they'll build their root, or they already had a small little nubbin of a root, but I think they're going to build a root and maybe even overwinter there, but we'll see. I don't know if you remember that I put a little seed right here of a silver sage that I thought would be beautiful in this little pot, but it didn't come up. It didn't do well at all for me. I was going to show you in this pot that I have a little green pepper, or not green but purple splash pepper, and it seems to be making it so far. I hope it will go ahead and get big and trail over and be a little beauty. Some pretty white purslane moss is blooming. You can tell this little one is getting a bit wilty too. Hopefully it'll make it till later on today to get some water. No, I'm going to go ahead and give it a drink right now. I remember that I have my little watering can that I try to keep full of water and ready to go, not too far away from that little plant. So it's all watered now. Just a little drink to tide it over. And while trying to catch a little rabbit out of the garden, we caught a raccoon. We took it off, let it out, brought it back, reset it for the rabbit, and the next night we caught a raccoon again. So hopefully they'll stay away, although I read a little bit about them, and it said that they travel 3 to 20 miles at night because they're nocturnal, and that's when they forage for food. But the saddest story I have for you is that my little cardinal, she was sitting on the nest, and I knew she was fine that night. When I got up the next day, I looked over at her several times, and she never came back to her nest. So that night I looked, and there were no eggs in her nest. I actually assumed it was that big old black snake that got her first eggs, and possibly it was. I never did see what got her little eggs, and there was no sign of them on the ground, so whatever got it swallowed them whole, I'm pretty sure. But what caused me to look and see anything about raccoons was I asked Google if they ate birds' eggs, and it said yes, absolutely they do eat birds' eggs. So it was either the little coon that we caught or a snake, but they're gone, and I'm sad for her. I actually went through a little bit of grief with her because that was her second try, and she suffered on that nest in this terrible heat for her babies that she didn't get to see. So summer can get rough in the garden. Every gardener knows. The garden just tries to go on. Nature just tries to go on. That little bird hopefully will just go on. I think I've even seen her out here enjoying some water from the sprinkler. So I'm hoping that the Lord will always take care of us, and He will. I know He will. Sometimes not exactly like we wanted, but I know that He always knows best, and He always cares. So we've been talking about our little bird, and she has gone, and I think I've seen her around, so hopefully she's doing okay. But I was thinking, what do you do when you try, and then try again, and you have to go and leave everything? And of course we're always reminded of the words of Paul when he was actually in jail. But he said, and I'm going to read this, and I'm reading it from the King James Version of the Bible. That's just my personal favorite. That's what I began with and stayed with. So, and this is in Ephesians 6:13 through 18. Wherefore take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand. Stand therefore, having your loins girt about with the truth, and having on the breastplate of righteousness, and your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. Above all, taking the shield of faith, wherewith ye may be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked, and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, and watching thereunto with all perseverance and supplication for all saints. God is the one thing that never changes. The same yesterday, today, and forever. This morning we have a change in the weather, a beautiful, wonderful change. It was 75 degrees when I came out, and we've been having over 100, definitely in the triple digits for quite some time. But I was so hoping and praying for rain, and actually we got it pretty much around us, but we did not get any here. And I had to water last night, which was so sad for me because I was so looking forward to not having to water and just to sit back and relax, or to get something done, just something besides watering. But no, here I was out here watering away. But I want to keep it alive because fall is going to come one of these days. It's kind of on its way. In the garden you see things that definitely let you know that fall is going to come. This is not one of them, but I'm seeing this pretty purslane moss in bloom, so I'm going to go over here and get this for you. And our 75 and 80 degree weather is definitely not going to last. The last report I heard on the weather was that we would be back to the triple digits by Monday. So today is Friday, and actually it's hot out here right now just to be out here. It's nothing like it has been being, but it does already feel warm. Oh well, look, this is my black and blue salvia. It was looking so scraggly I didn't know if it would make it, but it's looking great today. And this is one of the, it's a daisy-like flower. I can't remember the name of it right now, but I think it's Heliopsis. And I could only get it growing in one spot, and I've been trying to get it in another, and that's what this is. So hopefully it's like the variegated leaf, and it has pretty little yellow blooms on it when it blooms. But what I was going for is to show you some signs that fall is coming, and this seed heads on the grasses is one of those signs. I'm also noticing that the summer onion allium are beginning to open up. For me, the loss of my calabachoa is almost a sign that fall is upon us, because I never can seem to actually get it to grow all season long. It just plays out in the heat for me. Even this year I put it where it would get some shade from our weeping willow, and I thought it might have a chance, but it's gone. I'm anxious to get out here, and some of the coleus that are so tall, I would love to trim those back and try to start them beside it so that it wouldn't be so scraggly, to be filled out and pretty. But there is just no need to even try that in the heat, so I will need to wait. I'm trying to rush the seasons along because I'm so tired of the heat. I struggle with it so that it's very hard for me to get through the summers anymore. My neighbor gave me a wonderful compliment, saying other people's gardens are burned up and yours is still looking great. But honestly, it's not looking that great, and it's just due to being out here every single day watering it, trying to keep it alive, that it looks good at all. But there are just so many scraggly spots in the garden that I would love to make look better, and there really probably won't be time. Usually our fall weather comes on really cold. Sometimes we barely get a week or two before and that's not even enough time to get things straightened up and looking good and do it. I've been doing a little garden party is what I've been calling it. I need to ask Google what you do at a garden party, because all we do is visit and talk and look at the garden, and sometimes share plants and just things like that, which is I do enjoy it, but I need to do so much that I probably, and it's so hard to find that time. I may do it this year and I may not do it for a while, at least until I get some things caught up. Here's another grass that's putting on its seed heads. And this little pot could be pretty, but right now this one is too tall. This one is kind of splayed out everywhere. Can't see what's inside there, hardly. And it just needs a little help too. But again, I need to wait until it's nice enough that I can clip these off and maybe start them somewhere else, or just do something to make it look better without killing it. And this little pot, the coleus, is just about to cover up the little decor in there, and it would look so much better if I just clip that back. And I may just go ahead and do that, but I probably will leave it until it's cooler, where it'll just have a chance if I want to start it somewhere else. I don't remember if I showed you this when I clipped it all back, and I usually have no luck with clipping these petunias or calabachoas back and having them to come back out. But look at this. Maybe the cooler weather, I'm not sure why, but it just decided to shine again. So I'm thinking, on that little note of encouragement, I'm going to try to clip this off and see if it might go ahead and come back. I think this is that pretty, oh gosh, I think it's the fan flower, the pretty pinkish fan flower, and you can tell that there is some of the foliage still looking good, but it's beginning to go. So I'm going to trim this off and see what will happen. So there we go, and we will see what will become of it. But I'm not the only one that is anxious for cooler weather. I can tell these little plants are too. It's so obvious that they're enjoying the weather today more than they have been those hot days. But the garden and I both have a ways to go before cooler days will be here for any length of time at all. And here is some of that little fan flower that seems to be doing fairly well, and even the calabachoa is still blooming here, but it is looking a bit scraggly. This one is the pretty blue. The one in the back was a softer pink color, but it was pretty, and I hope it will go ahead and live for me. Please be sure to like and to subscribe to the channel.